Hello, diecast fans, and welcome to another new episode of Jim's magnificent miniature motor cars. In particular, I'd like to welcome you to Old versus New Part 2. It's a very special two-part mini-series I'm recording in which I compare the older version of a car to a newer version. Now, last episode, I compared two versions of the Porsche 911 Turbo, an older one by Kyosho and a newer one by Mini GT. Now this comparison for this episode, it's going to be much more of an apples to apples comparison, because now I'll be comparing this Lancia Stratos HF by Japanese brand CM's, okay, to this Lancia Stratos HF by Hong Kong-based brand Mini GT. Okay, so let's get on with the comparison, shall we? So, okay, just for a little bit of reference here, I got this CM's car. It's a blind box, okay, like Kyosho, okay, who released well, all kinds of cars back in the day. And yeah, the idea here was that you would buy this box without knowing which of the rally cars pictured would be in it. So you could get any of these or these. And well, fortunately, the retailer from whom I got this had already had the consideration to open the blind box. Incidentally, I got this car many years ago. This was a 2008 release, if I'm not mistaken. And I got it for, back then, 2008 money, was 650 pesos, which I think was, well, it was easily above $10 at the time. So it was a pretty penny. And you know what? It was worth it. Look at it. It's not only does it have detailed, a detailed race livery, a separate spoiler piece there. Oops, excuse me. Detailed headlamps. It's also got, and you got mud flaps, you got mud guards, and you got the dirt detailing on it. All of which is very cool, especially considering the time in which this was made. I mean, this wasn't made in the 70s or the 80s. It already benefited, I'm sure, from features like computer-aided design, but this was a very well-made car for the time. Perhaps the wheels weren't quite up to scale, but look at this. This is very respectable detail for a pretty old car, even granting that it was pretty expensive for the time. Now, contrast that to the Mini GT. Now, you guys know how I feel about Mini GT. Well, I think they're the cat's pajamas, or the greatest thing since sliced bread. And well, as those of you who may recall, when I unboxed this, I adored it. So I'm not exactly changing my mind here. The details are stunning. The wheels, and surprisingly, there's a detail here in which the older car actually wins. Look at the vents here on the front portion, on the front bonnet. See, the detail is actually better defined here on the older car. Whoop, look at that paint rash. Like I said, it's an old car, folks, so I guess that's a bit inevitable. For the most part, of course, as expected, the Mini GT, it's a better car. It's got more weight to it. It's got better detail and got better finer detail. Even though I think what's really remarkable here, if I'm perfectly honest, is just how much the older car holds up. I mean, she quite frankly holds her own against what should be basically a walk for the Mini GT. The Mini GT, by rights, should take this head to head. So there's no point in pointing out a winner here, because they are both winners. They are both really beautiful replications of a really beautiful car. But for me, hats off to CM for the fact that their car, easily 10 years after the fact of its launch, holds up pretty darn well against, well, someone who is easily the best in the business right now. Look at that. Look at that. Another little detail where CM's wins. They got mud flaps. They got mud guards on behind the front and the rear wheels. See that? Whereas the Mini GT just has them on the rear wheels. It's entirely possible that the Mini GT is based on the launch version of this car, while this is obviously the version that raced. All right. But yeah, see how close it is between these two, that I'm actually nitpicking on the little details. Okay, so for me, this isn't even about which is better, because these are both fantastic cars. I just gotta say that I'm really glad to have picked up the CMs, because dang, even after all these years, she still looks great. Okay, and I'm actually glad to have picked up this Mini GT, because it actually inspired me to revisit the CM's casting. So yeah, well, the real winner in this case is me, because I have both of these beauties. Absolutely stunning machines. Well, replications of machines anyway. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful work. I mean, if you're near a Mini GT distributor, I would strongly suggest you pick this up. It's absolutely gorgeous. And if you happen to have access to the CMs on the secondary market, I would suggest you pick this up too. I don't know what kind, I have no idea what kind of premium they're charging for it now, so I couldn't tell you whether or not it's worth it. But if it's anywhere in the region of $10, I would say yeah, go ahead and get it. This is a beauty. You won't be sorry. And that's it, folks, for old versus new part 2. Okay, still got a lot of content coming for January, so stay tuned. And if you're new to the channel, please consider giving me a like and a subscribe and hitting that notification bell.